Our next speaker is a cybersecurity visionary, passionate about making the online world safer. He is a co-inventor of 5 U.S. patents for cybersecurity technology and Qualys offerings. He has been instrumental in driving the company's vision of making enterprise security more efficient and disrupting the vulnerability management space with integrated capabilities, including patch management and cybersecurity asset management. A product fanatic and engineer at heart, he continues to be instrumental in dramatically expanding the original Qualys platform's scope, integrations, and automations. From joining Qualys in 2003 to the present day, his contributions and leadership have helped propel Qualys to its current success in cybersecurity. From engineer to president and CEO, please give a warm welcome to Sumedh Thakar.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb, for getting water and some tea and stuff arranged. So woke up a little bit in the morning feeling a little sick. So I do want to warn, since we're in San Diego, I have to say, anybody sitting here, you are in the splash zone. So I'm not responsible for that. Great keynote by Juliet. I think been in this industry for like, 20 plus years. And a lot of technical talk around cybersecurity, but never thought of it as the boom. And I think that's a great way to describe what we're trying to avoid here. We're going to talk about cyber risk, not the most fun topic, but something that all of us are here to work on every single day. But before I get there, we're talking about risk. It was interesting. First of all, I hope that everybody in Florida is safe and everybody's family is safe. But glad this year we didn't pick the location as Orlando for QSC. You talk about risk management, so how things go with risk management, and you can never plan for having zero risk. So great example of that was flying in from San Francisco, and I was texting the team saying, guys, glad we didn't pick Orlando this year. It's really tough out there. So glad we are in sunny San Diego. This is Monday evening. We're about to touch down. My feet, I feel like they're about to touch the tarmac, and suddenly aborted landing. So take off without landing, no information. So I have no idea what's going on. We get up there after 10 minutes. They're like, hey, the fog rolled in suddenly, and they had to abort landing. And so we ended up landing in Ontario. And to clarify, not Canada. Some people ask me that. We're talking about Ontario here in Los Angeles, but still, we ended up over there. Now, when I was getting ready to come here, my wife was like, well, and those of you who know me know that I have a medical allergic reaction to checking in bags. So I never check in bags. As I was sitting on my bag and trying to zip it up before I left so I don't have to check in, my wife was like, why are you overdoing this, right? It's a 1.5-hour flight. It's a non-stop flight. What could go wrong with the bags? Now, it so happens that we land in Ontario, and they are like, hey, if you don't have a bag, you could just find another mode of transportation and go. But if you have a bag that was checked in, we're not getting it out of the plane till the flight is officially canceled or it takes off. And so I hadn't quite, planned for that, but now we had a bigger situation because 2 of us on the flight did not have a bag checked in, and 1 did. And so look, I've been here for 20 plus years. I'm a people leader. I love the employees, and I have a policy of no man left behind unless that man checked in a bag. So then you're on your own. And so we took an Uber from Ontario, 2.5 hours, 2 of us sitting in a Honda Civic or something, with this guy with his car seat and stuff, and we drive 2.5 hours to get here. I think nothing in the risk management thing that we had thought about would have included the scenario and a action of being extra paranoid about not checking in a bag would help us get here on time. and the other person, so we were able to get here by 10 p.m. The other person the flight took off like midnight and then got here 30 minutes later, San Diego, and they're like, yeah, there's still fog. We're not able to land again. So you're like, this cannot be happening. So they had to circle, and and finally ended up getting here. Everything is fine, and he's going to present here. I'm not going to say the name of the employee, of course, because HR is here, but he's going to talk about Total Cloud. All right, so let's start with the basics. What is cybersecurity? Now, all I can think of is the boom. Every time we talk about cybersecurity, it is like, well, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to avoid the boom, right? And I think a lot of times I ask people, what's your job, what's your role? And most of the time, they're like, well, we've got to fix all these vulnerabilities, we got to close all these holes, we got to find all the attackers. And it's a lot of technical conversation about what we're trying to do in cybersecurity. My job, cybersecurity is about implementing zero trust, right? Or some new buzzword that has come out. But at the core of it, from a business perspective, what is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity is, from a business perspective, is a risk management function for the company. The company has many different risks, and one of those is around technology. And what could a technology compromise? And technology has two risks. One is operational risk, which is non-availability of infrastructure that we saw that happened earlier because of the update. And then the other is a cyber attack or something like that, which can cause risk to your technology function. And of course, as more and more companies, like literally every single company these days is digital, your digital footprint has increased, which means that the risk around that digital footprint has also increased. And so you need today a focus on how are we going to manage that risk that comes from the digital infrastructure. If you don't have a lot of risk, then you don't really need to do a lot. If you have a lot of risk, and the first question that comes to mind when anybody says the word risk, what's the first question that comes? How much? And 99% of the people I talk to cannot actually talk about the risk in terms of how much risk do they have. And the number of vulnerabilities that you have discovered by Qualys is not a measure of risk. So 2 million vulnerabilities, it doesn't really mean anything from a risk perspective. So I was wondering, how do we define risk? And what is the definition of risk, or a simplified definition of risk? And I found this extremely amazing book written by Rich. Are you here? Oh, there he is. So Rich Saracen has written this book on how to quantify anything in cybersecurity. I have heard it's really good. I haven't read it, but he told me it was really good. And it talks about the basic definition of what is risk management, and that is really about, or what is risk, and it is about the, how do I go back on this? There you go, okay. It's a state of uncertainty which can lead to a catastrophic loss or other undesirable business outcome, AKA the boom, right? It is what is the possibility of that happening. And so uncertainty means that it's not a done thing. It's not definitely going to happen. It is a probability. It's a possibility that something could happen, and that is your risk. To say something could happen that can cause an issue to my business is really about the risk in terms of cybersecurity. So then what is risk management, right? Risk is something that needs to be managed. And so again, Rich, his book is very good, and it talks about it is the mitigation or transfer of the risk for the most plausible losses that could impact the business. So again, it might feel like I'm promoting Rich's book, but we do share the royalty from the book. It's 90% and 10%, since I'm promoting that. But I think those two terms are very important, right? Which is mitigation and transfer of this risk. That's really at a high level what cybersecurity is about identifying what are the different scenarios in which you can actually cause a meaningful loss to the business. And then from there, you really get into, well, how much should I spend on the mitigation of it, and how much do I spend on the transfer of the risk? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So of course, you're never going to have zero risk, as we saw with checking in bags, right, Kunal? There is never a zero risk of a non-stop flight that's hour and a half if the bag not coming in. So you're never going to have zero risk, and which is in a way is good, because now you're not trying to fix every single of the 10 million vulnerabilities detected by Qualys or whoever else. It is really about how do we figure out which out of those different scenarios are actually going to likely to cause a financial loss for a company. So again, I'm focusing right now on business organization. Of course, for governments, nation state, it's not necessarily about the money, though at the end it always is about the money. But really it is about how do we identify the most likely scenarios that can cause a financial loss, and which means that we have to figure out from a risk management perspective, how do we reduce that likelihood of that loss happening? So it's all about what can we do, how much should we spend on reducing that loss. Now, and that's really what risk management is about, is reducing that loss. And so the question becomes is, how much does the business stand to lose is the main question when you think about cybersecurity. Is if this event happened, if this vulnerability get exploited, if something bad happens, how much will the business lose in terms of whatever the business thinks about? That's really the question, and that is the value at risk, right? So that doesn't mean if your business is $200 million a year that you're going to lose all of the $200 million a year. The question is, if there is an attack, if your system gets shut down or get compromised or there's a ransomware attack, how much money is the business going to lose if that scenario happens? And there are generally a few scenarios, reputational damage, your ability to conduct business, loss of compliance certificates or mandates, which ultimately still lead to the same thing. And for the most part, the business really cares more about unavailability of the digital systems. Yeah, so reputation, more and more in cyber, reputational loss is something people, of course, want to avoid. But how many of you have changed your provider in the last year because they send you a note saying that there may have been a compromise of your data? Nobody. You still keep shopping at the same place. You really just still stick with the same. I mean, I'll be happy if somebody wants to. And you are in cybersecurity, right? If you are not doing that, other people are definitely not changing their providers because, so reputational damage, the question is when there is a reputational damage, is there a business loss that happens, right? Or, like some vendors, you use this opportunity to get your name more out there, be in front of Congress, and create more marketing dollars for you. So it really is about that, is what is the value at risk? And for the most part, the most important value at risk for most organizations is if I know how many PII records I have, I can make an outside calculation on the maximum fine I will have to pay if I lose all of those records, so you kind of know how much that is going to be. And you can account for that. The thing that most companies fear for is the value at risk because of non-availability of your banking system for 1 week, or non-availability of ability to conduct online business for 3 days, 1 week. That is really the value at risk. And so number one, to be able to sort of decide how you're going to go about your risk management exercise is really to know what is your value at risk. And that is not a CISO function, just that somebody in security comes up with some information and says, this is my value at risk. It is really about how you are able to work with the executive team and the business to understand what are the business entities that we care about, how much are they producing every year, what is the possibility of a loss if the systems are not available. So that's a conversation that needs to happen at the higher level. Is really about your CISO, your board, your CFO needs to be involved. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to talk to the business in terms of vulnerabilities, but we'll get there. You know what the response is when it comes to that. So quantification of risk is very important, which means that the language that you speak with your counterparts in different groups has to be the same. And because if you have ever tried to talk to your finance team about vulnerabilities, or how many vulnerabilities you mitigated, you can see the complete blank stare that they give you. It's like, wait, so I gave you all this budget and you fixed all these vulnerabilities, well, what does that mean? So the language that has to be spoken has to be the same across all the entities. And the question then becomes, well, what is the language of risk, right? Is it a risk score? Is it a risk meter? Is it your number of vulnerabilities? Is it how many zero trust or CIEM, CTEM, whatever alphabet soup we have that we have deployed? No. The only language of risk at the end of the day is really money. It really is every single thing everybody here in this room is doing is really about working towards preventing a loss of money to the organization. Of course, when you have a government entity, they are also thinking about in terms of other factors, but for businesses, it's really about you have to be able to talk about risk in terms of dollars, being able to articulate what are the dollars that are at risk here. And so that's where you get in the conversation that if you know how much is at risk, that defines how much you are going to spend to reduce that risk. Right? Today, if you do it blindly, you can't have a house that is worth $1 million and then you're paying $500,000 to reduce the risk of damage happening to the house. That equation really doesn't work. So how much should you do to mitigate the risk of something happening to the house? And then what is the residual risk that is just not worth mitigating that you can take from your cyber insurance? Right? That is the transfer of risk, is you're transferring that risk to a cyber insurance company. But if you call an insurance company and you say, hey, I want cyber insurance, they're not asking you, how many vulnerabilities you have, how many misconfigurations you have, how many cloud buckets you have. They are asking about the financial information about your business. And in many cases, they're getting it from publicly available sources anyway. And then they're correlating that with other companies your size to be able to say, what is the potential of a loss and how much should the premium cost? And so Jonathan, when we were working on our board material last quarter, he came and he said, hey, look, we have a cyber insurance renewal coming up, and great deal. It's $20 million for $600,000 premium. And so I was like, is that enough? And we're like, we don't know. So he's like, no, it's enough. I said, well, who said it's enough? He said, the cyber insurance company said it's enough. So they're like, yeah, it's enough. So then we got into it, and we figured out that what they looked at is they said 92% of the different incidents that can happen to a company in our field, our size, our geography, are covered by the cap of the 20 million, right? The 20 million is what the payout is. That actually covers 92% of payout scenarios that they look at. So, and then, what is our security budget? It's about, let's say 10 million, just putting out a number out there. So we're paying $600,000 to cover the risk of 92% of things that could happen, but then we end up spending 10 million to cover the 8%, which is the rest of it, that is actually going to maybe cause a bigger damage, right? 50 million, 100 million, or something like that. And so that equation becomes super important when you're talking about, well, how much am I going to mitigate, how much do I spend on mitigating, and how much do I spend on transferring that risk to somebody else? And that's really the overall what risk management exercise is about discussing in terms of what's my value at risk, how much should I spend, of the spend that I'm going to make, how much should I put on mitigation, and how much should I put on transfer. Unfortunately today, when the language that almost everybody speaks is really about alerts and vulnerabilities and patches. So again, if you've ever tried to talk to your finance team about how many vulnerabilities that you discovered with the budget that they gave you, they're completely blank. Okay, so what does that mean? You say, no, you don't get it, but we patched 70,000 patches in the last year. Still means nothing. Oh no, we got this new cloud security unicorn product that's like amazing, and so we found like 70 buckets that are open to the, still nothing, blank. It's none of that is making sense, and that's what we're reporting. as KPIs, is we're reporting how many vulnerabilities we found, how many patches that we deployed, and that's what is going to the board. And so, a few years ago, all the CISOs wanted to have a seat at the board because what they are doing in cyber is very important to the business. Then they got the opportunity to be at the board, and like 90% of them don't want to go back because the board doesn't understand what they're saying, and they're not able to express because they go and say, look, we spent $2 million last 2 years, and we implemented MFA. And like team worked really hard, and then the board goes like, oh, that's good, so what does that mean to the business? Are we like 10 times safer? Are we like 1 time safer? Are we like, wait, how do we think of that in the context of the business? And a lot of times they're not able to discuss that because we're still kind of trying to do this language of how many vulnerabilities I found and how many I've fixed. And I say that because at the end of the day, this is a ground-up approach that we have to take. It is folks who are on the ground working on the vulnerability management, misconfigurations, cloud security, all of these different tools have to be thinking in terms of what am I doing and what should I focus on in terms of what is the potential loss that I'm avoiding to the business. Because we talked about this, right, which is, like I said, it really doesn't mean anything to the business at all. So what do we need to do to start speaking the language of risk? And number one thing is the business context, which is what I had mentioned earlier, that we need to be able to say, you need the business context. You need to be able to, at least on a whiteboard, put the different blocks of your business. How many business entities? What are the business units? What is the annual revenue? So today, everybody's at a very low maturity when it comes to that. But at least if you start to say, and if you look at the SEC requirement around disclosure, et cetera, that says if there is a material impact, then it has to be disclosed. Now, you get an alert from CrowdStrike or whoever that says, hey, there is a malicious actor on this particular asset. And you have, what, 72 hours, Jonathan, or 48 hours to disclose? 4 business days. But it's taking you 2 weeks to find out who owns this asset before you even get to know if it's material or not, because our asset management system does not have attribution. So knowing the business context of every system, it becomes super important, and the business context of the loss becomes super important. So to be able to start there, the first question is, to do any risk management program, do we know all of our assets? And the answer is no. So imagine starting a program and you fail at the first step immediately. You just don't know how many assets you have in your environment. Are we able to talk in terms of all the risk factors that we have, not just your vulnerability, but how many other risk factors impact your digital systems? Like end-of-life software is a big risk factor. That is not, or things that are going to go end-of-life is a big risk factor. Are we able to correlate all of them in an effective manner? A CVE is not a CVE, the same CVE every time. If you have a CVE that is detected by Qualys or Tenable or Rapid7 on your production environment, the risk of that CVE is significantly higher than the same CVE being detected by Sneak or somebody in your code base, because that has not made it to production. So you cannot just blindly say, just because a CVE is discovered, that the risk is the same. So the ability to correlate these different findings to say, I have this CVE, which is on this particular app that I discovered in the code repository, and correlating that with the actual application that is running in production becomes super important for us to really be able to say, how do we start to talk about what we do on the ground with all these different risk factors and correlate that with the business. And then you have to be able to layer on your threat intelligence to be able to prioritize these things. We already know there are way too many vulnerabilities. You open your Qualys console, everybody is in hundreds and thousands or millions of findings, and we're never going to be able to fix all of that. That's a given. And we don't have the resources, and nobody's going to give us more resources. If you go with that number to say, look, here's the Qualys thing that says 10 million vulnerabilities are detected, can I get 10x increase in my budget? I think the answer we all know, right? I don't want to even bring that up. So the ability to say, I have a limited number of resources, and I have a large set of issues that need to be fixed, how do you decide where you want to put those? Now, you could try to do some CVSS correlation and scoring based on that, but I talked about this last year also. We looked at all the CVSS high and critical vulnerabilities, and only 20% of those, or even less at times, actually have a exploit that is available that would actually lead to a real compromise. So if your process today is that let's scan everything, give the critical and high to the IT team to fix, and let's say the IT team took a week or 5 days to fix all of those, they spent 4 days fixing things that made no impact to the risk of your business. So you gave them a whole bunch of work that they did and actually resulted in no impact to the business for reducing the risk because they ended up fixing a bunch of things or prioritizing a bunch of things that necessarily don't act. So that context of threat becomes very important. It's not just a blind list of all the things that you have to do. Then, once you've done all of that, you build your nice dashboards and everything, every single dollar you have invested in building those dashboards is worth nothing if you don't actually remediate the issue that the attacker is going to leverage before the attacker gets there, right? You can build all these nice dashboards and take selfies with it and post it saying how much of a great job I'm doing, but that's going to come back to haunt you when a compromise happens because a vulnerability that has been there for 4 years with a patch was not remediated in time, and the attacker used it, and now that's going to turn against you to say, wait, so you spent $2 million building all of that and didn't actually spend $50 fixing and patching that particular vulnerability? So remediation matters. Now, I know the prevailing sentiment is that, well, that's an IT problem. It's not my problem. Asset management is an IT problem. Patch management is an IT problem. And I get it. I just want to ask you one thing. How many of you think that if there is a compromise and you have to go talk to SEC or in front of the board or at the press, that the IT person who actually did not deploy the patch is going to raise their hand and say, wait, why don't you go sit? Let me go deal with this. Anybody thinks that's going to happen in their organization? No? Right. So more and more security teams have a vested interest in making sure that the remediation happens. And a big part of that is that you cannot throw millions of things at the IT team. They are busy with different things. If you can show that here is a list of 5 things that are actually going to reduce the risk of this particular compromise by half, they are a lot more interested in now actually partnering with you to be able to fix these issues. The other concern that the operation team, the IT team always has is the operational risk that comes with trying to fix a security risk, right? And so if you give them 10,000 CVE, medium, and high and critical, fixing 10,000 vulnerabilities could mean you have to deploy 1,000 patches. 1,000 patches means 1,000 different opportunities for things to get screwed up. If you can prioritize that down to the 10% of those that truly are exploitable, and now you're saying, look, here's a list of 100 things that need to be fixed. 100 things could just mean 6 patches. That's a lot more palatable for them to say, like, this is a good balance between trade-off of an operational risk impact versus the impact of a security risk. And we see this all the time. Like, we have auto-patching that our customers leverage. Chrome, as an example. Like, I don't know how it works over there, but somehow every Friday is when they decide to release a new 0-day that now the IT team has to sit all weekend and call people to say, hey, can you click on that update? Can you click on that update? Can you click on that update? And so now with Qualys Patch Management, we've added the ability for auto-patching, where people just put a rule that says, look, if it's a Chrome update and it's on any of my laptop or desktop, just patch it. Like, don't even wait for tickets, approval, change control, because the probability of an operational issue happening because of a Chrome update is significantly less than an employee clicking on a link of a cute cat video. That's a significantly higher potential, right? And so it is about really saying, how do I become a partner as part of that remediation becomes very important. Now, what is today's state of cybersecurity? Today, when I ask folks or risk management, they say, yeah, we have all the tools. We have one tool for cloud. We have one tool for remote endpoints. We have one tool for this. And everybody has their top 10 dashboards. And so you have your top 10 from Sneak and Wiz and Qualys and everybody, and then after that, the question still is, okay, so what's your risk? Well, that we can't tell, but we have the top 10s. Now, the IT team is thinking, guys, okay, top 10 from 10 tools is like top 100 now. So now you're again going back to giving me a huge list of things. And so, which means that if we start to throw everything at folks that saying that, oh, you have to fix it, it's critical, 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 it just loses its importance because they're like, okay, these guys first, they don't know what they're doing. They're just coming and telling me all these things that I have to do. Doesn't talk about the balance of if I spend my time on fixing this versus I spend my time on doing something else, how does that impact the business? And if you look at any surveys from last year, you will see that cyber budgets this year only saw an average 6% increase from last year, which adjusted to inflation is a flat budget. And but who else has been getting more budget this year? As long as you put AI in it, you're going to get the budget, right? So the finance team has to decide, okay, I have the security team coming in saying, give me $1 million, and I will make it better. Like, oh my God, so much safer. And then you have the AI team that is coming in saying, look, we have this idea. If we work on it, we implement it, it can increase top line by 5%. Who do you think the money's going to go to? Oh my God, I'm going to make it better. That's not cutting it, right? So then the question becomes, really is, what is the conversation that you need to have? And the conversation that we need to have, and that's really working, is can you say that, look, our $500 million a year business unit has a potential loss of 10 million a day if a cyber event happens. Today, the score, after looking at all the different tools and prioritizing things, is a high probability of 75% that something bad is going to happen. We want to have an acceptable risk level, which is, let's say, 20%. And I want to be able to spend $500,000 specifically implementing these 4 controls, which will then bring the probability of losing $10 million from 75% to 30%. And I want to spend another $50,000 for cyber insurance to take the rest of the 20% off. That's the conversation that needs to happen, which doesn't happen, and that's the reason why there is always this, like, again, the cyber guys are back asking for more money. Nobody knows what the ROI is. And the ROI is not I don't have any attacks. It's not an ROI that anybody will buy. It has to be going back to what we started the conversation with. Cybersecurity is a risk management function. And the ROI is being able to demonstrate how much risk you have reduced. And so today, the language still is a lot about too many threats, too many patches, things like that. And so I have no idea what this is. So I have to say, sorry, I have not seen these slides before. It's a blind date right now. So I'm hoping this works out, but should I click it one more time? Oh yeah, these are the vulnerabilities and issues from different dashboards and tools. And from each one of them, only a few are important, which I don't need to point out are the red dots. But I still will. And then we need to be able to remove the noise and then really focus on the red dots, which are the ones that are the most important. And we need to take all this noise, which are, I have all these risk factors, and convert them into something that is demonstrative of the actual risk that you have in the organization. And that is the ability to take all of that and really distill them down into indicators of exposure. Not every vulnerability is an exposure. Not every misconfiguration is an exposure. Not every cloud issue is an exposure. Only 5% of all your things are going to be an actual exposure that people are going to be looking at. So what we really need is an ability to say, like, as we look at it grounds up, as we are now kind of have an idea of what the business looks like, how do we take all of the data that we have coming and then stop doing what we are doing right now, which at the end of the day is really about a risk whack-a-mole. We're like, oh, celebrity vulnerability here, bam. And then something pops up from here, no, we got to go fix that. oh no, I saw this on Twitter, we got to go fix that. And so we're just in this constant process of like this, shoot, back. And then at the end of the day, there is like, we did all this work and we still can't say, well, what did we get out of that? Okay, so we fixed a few things, but were they really relevant to the business? This is really bring us value. So we got to stop doing this risk whack-a-mole and take a much more of an operational approach to saying, here's my assets, here's all the different risk factors, my threat intelligence, my business context. Now I have a list of exposures that are really important, and I need to operationalize fixing those. Because again, like I said, without fixing, there is no value in all the money you spent in building the nice dashboards that you take selfies with. Sounds familiar? Where have we seen that? We have dealt with this for the last few years with the concept of a SOC. And to use the technical term that Juliet mentioned is the boom. The SOC is after the boom. You're saying somebody is in my environment, let me look at tons and tons and tons of log data and apply threat intelligence and then use SOAR so I can figure out somebody's in my network and I can send it to somebody who's going to fix it. That is not an approach we take when we're thinking about risk, right? We are thinking about all these 10 dashboards and top 10s and stuff like that, but we're not really saying how do we operationalize that. And so that is where we really see a need to move more into a risk management process for cybersecurity, which is truly operationalized. And it is not a whack-a-mole. It is not just reactive to, oh, I heard this new thing on Twitter and that, and trying to fix everything and patch everything. It is really about how do we create a completely operationalized process that we are going to really implement in our organization so it is completely transparent, visible, and defendable to what we are doing rather than just lists and lists of vulnerabilities. And that's where we really would like to think about and introduce the concept of a ROC, which is a Risk Operations Center. I think every organization really needs a Risk Operations Center type of a process, people, workflow, and tools that allow you to have a single platform where you can find all your assets, correlate all of these findings, and be able to get an outcome of an actual reduced risk, very similar to what we have been doing for the SOC. Unfortunately, SOCs are really meant for a different type of data, log analysis, time series data. That's not the case when you're looking at risk. Risk is really about the real-time visibility of what is happening in your network, and that's really the important part that we really need to be looking at. And so the Risk Operations Center is a single platform that allows you to measure, communicate, and eliminate all the important risks to the business in one place, rather than throwing 10 different dashboards, reports, and stuff like that. Really holistically looking at all the different risk factors as it relates to cybersecurity in one place. And so what are the different components that you need to operationalize your ROC? Number one is a unified asset inventory, which nobody has, right? Everybody's like, who here loves their CMDB? All right, nobody, okay, good. So then, now you look at the industry, and then every analyst firm has their new term that they want to coin. And so you have CTEM, CAASM, AASM, EASM, IASM. All of these are just to say, do you have all your assets in one place? We haven't even started the rest of the risk management process, right? So how do we get a clear view? Now, we had some conversation yesterday, and I think there was a question about, like, isn't it the IT team's job to provide a list of assets? How many of you trust the list of assets that your IT team gives? They hate on Qualys all quarter long, and at the end of the quarter, they'll send you an email, hey, can I get that list of assets from Qualys? That's the most up-to-date list that they have, right? And so it's like any software development, your developers are going to code, and they're going to claim that they have done unit testing, and they're like, trust me, my code is secure. Let's put it to production. How many of you will do that? No. You're going to have your own process of testing that before it goes to production, and which is a good exercise to have. And so that is really important for asset inventory as well, is to have a single place where you can really look at all of the different asset sources, correlate them, deduplicate them, and start with that. Then the ability to have all of your risk factors in one place. Of course, like every vendor, everybody says that they have the single pane of glass, and nobody does. We don't either. I think in security, you're going to use the tools that work best for your use cases that are best in the industry. So the ability to have a single place where you can bring all the different findings from all of your different risk management tools, then applying threat intelligence, publicly available threat intelligence, different threat intelligence that are generic, specific threat intelligence to your company, your geography, your industry. Of course, business context. Just because you have an exploitable vulnerability, that doesn't mean that that actually is going to lead to a major loss. You might be focusing on the wrong patching because there might be something else that actually is going to lead to a much bigger financial issue that you did not prioritize because you didn't have the business context, right? If you just say, I'm going to take all these assets and start fixing everything, rather than saying, look, first I'm going to fix the assets that are part of the $200 million a year business unit. We're going to get to the $3 million business unit at the end because I have to prioritize. I cannot fix everything together. So business context becomes super important, which really leads to the prioritization. Cannot fix everything. I mean, if any of you in your organization feels like you can fix everything that is being found, you should be doing the keynote here next time instead of me. And then, like I said, without some form of response to immediate remediation, and the delays in remediation because of the silos are just basically about being able to, because we're not articulating the really important things that need to be fixed, which is why things just get pushed down. And all it means is that if your team is going to take 2 weeks to fix something, you have a 2-week-long exposure. It's a risk. Doesn't mean something bad is going to happen. You could be lucky, and you know, it's the existence of an issue is not a risk, by the way. It's the knowledge of that issue becomes a risk. So you routinely find these celebrity vulnerabilities in, you know, OpenSSH and this and that, where it's like, oh yeah, this thing has been in the code for the last 11 years. That was never a risk. It's like when somebody finds out, it becomes a risk. And we hope we find out first before the attacker do, right? So risk is about the known issues that you have. If something is nobody knows, we don't have an issue. We don't have to worry about anything if nobody knows about it. It is really not, it's not about the existence of an issue, it's about the knowledge of the issue is what creates the problem. And so we need to be able to, very quickly, as soon as we find out that there is something happening, be able to say, wait, is this part of my business unit that's going to lose a lot of money? Let me prioritize and triage that. And then, of course, you know, to justify your ROI, the work that you're doing, that platform, single platform, needs to be able to collect this compliance, provide compliance reporting to be able to show that you're doing what you need to do. And then, of course, you have to have your executive reporting, because the reporting that goes to the IT team is different than what goes to the board, than what goes to your CFO. Everybody needs a different view on the same data that you have. And that really is the rock, the way we see it. And a lot of our beta customers who have talked about that, they really think that this is a good framework to think about the left of the boom, right? Right of the boom is the sock, left of the boom is the rock. And we have to establish this process, people, and a platform that is going to bring a lot of these things together. And so that's why we are super excited to launch what we call as the world's first ROC in the cloud, which is a Qualys ETM. Thank you. So, Mark, this time here is aspirational, right? Okay, I have to meet this time. Okay, all right. So it's our Enterprise TruRisk Management platform. Super excited. It's a platform that we are delivering that is not about Qualys findings anymore. It is about the ability for us to collect inventory from all your tools, collect risk factors from all different tools that you have, provide ways that you can articulate this risk, business context, etc. They said don't try to explain it because I talk too much. So the marketing team has made a nice video. Is that, the video did not play. Did I have to, was there a secret command? What What's happening here?
Today's cybersecurity pros struggle to tie risk mitigation with business objectives due to threats growing in scale and complexity, an overload of top 10 dashboards, and insufficient resources to manage it all effectively. With risks everywhere, from code and applications to cloud, endpoints, and user identities, constantly expanding your attack surface and lacking proper business context, it's nearly impossible to assess their true impact on what matters most to the business. This confusion breeds inefficiencies, making it difficult to prioritize and address the risks that truly count. Sound familiar? While we have security operations centers, SOCs, to detect breaches, what about proactive risk management? It's time to shift our approach. Enter the Risk Operations Center, ROC. The ROC consolidates all critical elements into a seamless and efficient process. It unifies indicators of exposure into a centralized data fabric, consolidating real-time inventory data and integrating advanced threat intelligence for continuous risk mitigation. By providing business context through cyber risk quantification, the ROC helps organizations identify and prioritize high-risk vulnerabilities, orchestrating actionable remediation strategies to eliminate the most critical threats and reduce uncertainty in risk management. Introducing Qualys Enterprise TruRisk Management, ETM, the world's first cloud-based risk operations center. With Qualys ETM, you gain comprehensive visibility into your entire attack surface through a unified asset inventory, aggregating findings across multiple tools and enriching them with insights from over 25 integrated threat feeds. Powered by AI-driven threat prioritization and TruRisk Eliminate for immediate remediation, Qualys ETM transforms risk management into a proactive, streamlined process, keeping you ahead of emerging cyber threats. Now is the time to take full control of your risk operations and seamlessly operationalize your risk management strategy. Maximize your cybersecurity investments. Launch your ROC today with Qualys Enterprise TruRisk Management, the world's first cloud-based risk operations center.
All right. And I know this is not a new concept for you. A lot of you have been trying to build this on your own in-house with hiring developers who keep leaving and asking more salary and stuff like that. We have some of those too, but they're not here. I think our focus really is about not some, where we had to put AI in the video because that's the only way I could get money from our CFO. So don't take it too seriously, but of course there is AI built in. But it really is about, there's no magic sauce or something like that. We're really about simplifying the hygiene and the right things that you should already be doing, which are very hard to do. Qualys ETM is about focusing on simplifying that and making it easy. So I'm not going to take too much time on that one because we have a real live demo. The thing is working mostly. And Mayuresh is going to give a demo of that. But really what we are working towards, and we are releasing a brand new UI, which you will see, very cool. But it is about, can I get a single view of all my different findings, my code findings, my cloud findings, my remote desktop findings, everything into one? Can I bring my vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, compliance issues all into one? And really, can I talk about to the management, to the board, to the IT team in terms of what is my application, how much is it making a year, what is my current risk appetite, how much has it gone up in the last few days, and then from there on, you will be able to go into saying, what do I need to do to fix that or reduce that? And so we have to eat our own dog food, and so with our board meeting, and again, these numbers are not, these are only indicative numbers, but in our board meeting, Jonathan and I, we discuss how are we going to present something that is meaningful to the board. A lot of people say, oh, we need to train the board. No, the board doesn't need to be trained. You need to be able to speak the language they understand, which is a simple language of what's the top line, bottom line, and how are we reducing risk to that. And so at a high level, when we look at Qualys as an example, we would look at different platforms that we have. We have 13 platforms globally. We know cohort of customers that goes on each platform, so we know the annual revenue of those customers, and so you can roughly sort of correlate that to say any issue on this particular platform, which is the highest dollar value per year, is going to be the biggest loss for us. We haven't gotten down in a maturity level to the point where we identify exactly dollar value loss, but then what we did was we plotted those revenue on this one chart, and then we plotted the TruRisk score from Qualys on the same chart. And now what you're able to show to the board, what they look at is like, okay, we know the team is focusing on the right things because the money that they're spending is going in the right area because the risk score for the highest dollar value business unit is the lowest. And the risk score for the lowest dollar value business unit is the highest. Now, we have an acceptable risk appetite, which can change per business unit, but you feel much better, of course. Now you can have a plan to say, look, on that business unit, I want to go from 950 to 400, but the potential for loss there is only 8 million. So it's not, if I have to pick one thing I need to fix, I will probably focus on the left side of this. This one graphic to the executive management really was super, super helpful because all they wanted to know that the spend that we are doing, we're focusing on the right way. We're not overly focusing on fixing things there. We're focusing them on here, and that the risk is in an acceptable level, and we have clarity on what we need to do to bring the risk down. If you go back to that slide of putting top 10 from Wiz, top 10 from Qualys, top 10 from CrowdStrike, it means absolutely nothing to them. So this is really what we are working on, being able to get out from ATM. And of course, that we have an ecosystem that we're building, so we'll be ingesting. It's not just about Qualys data. Of course, if you have Qualys data, a lot of the ATM capability is already there for you. You can start with an asset inventory if you have CSAM. But we are also have connectors. Partners are working with us, and we're ingesting data. Super excited, by the way, we already have integration partnership with some of our launch partners. So Defender, Wiz, Oracle, Palo Alto, Forescout, SentinelOne, Okta for identity are all working with us right now as part of the ETM partnership. So this is not a lone wolf type of a thing. My platform is the best. It's really about how do we make sense of the different risk factors that you have beyond what Qualys does. And even if you have a competing tool, that's not an issue. We really want to focus on giving you that particular risk view. And like I said, it's not about just us and what we are doing. It is also about working, because we can give this whole platform, but you'll be back to like, hey, here's XDR, good luck, right? And so now you need partners to help you, because Qualys, we are more about the tool. So we are also excited that right off the bat, we are also launching the concept of an MROC, which is a managed ROC, which means we have partners that are actually going to be working to look at your business, look at the financials of your business, help you with the maturity cycle of how to look at risk, and then on the technical side, work with you to bring all your different risk factors into a single platform, and then provide visibility into what needs to be remediated and help you with the remediation. So really setting up a risk operations center that you can look at. And by the way, out on the partner pavilion is that, where we actually have a prototype of a ROC, where we have two ROCs, where we have a bunch of screens that show different risk factors and a chair. And so if you want to experience what it would be to be in a ROC, you can go and see that later today. I think it's pretty fascinating to be able to sit there and see your business risk moving and your prioritized list of items are visible. So you don't always have to be that one little screen in a big SOC where you're ignored. So this is good for self-esteem as well. So we're super excited again for the launch, and our first partner here is going to be Level Blue, which is an AT&T company. So they are here. They've been working with us on how we can help customers, and we'll of course have a lot of other managed service providers working with us as well to help you set up that. And like I said, nothing will be complete if we don't also talk about the risk that we are not able to mitigate with tools, because it's too much work, it's not worth it, it's not worth the effort. So there's always that one thing where it's like, can't plan for that bag not making it because the flight got diverted, but can I take insurance, right? So when you go through picking your flight, at the end, they will ask you, would you like to buy insurance for that remote possibility that your bag doesn't make it and you will have money to buy the toiletries and stuff like that. So that will not be complete without the conversation of insurance. And so super happy to announce that we are also forming a partnership with Mulberry, which is a up-and-coming cyber tech company, insurance tech company. And what they have done is they worked with the US insurance regulator and really analyzed the Qualys TruRisk scoring mechanism. And they have got approval to be able to provide financial discount on your premium if you are sharing the Qualys TruRisk score with them. And the more lower score, and so the lower your score is, because you've put efforts, you've put money in lowering the score, you should have a benefit of that in your risk reduction exercise that you're doing with the organization. So, in case you missed it, it's called the ETM, the Enterprise TruRisk Management Platform. It's about measure, communicate, eliminate the risk, and really it's about de-risking your business with the Cyber Operations Center. I am mildly over time, but I do want to take a couple more minutes. This is our 25th year anniversary for Qualys, so we're super, super excited. We've been doing this for a long time, and it feels like the job's not done. But a lot of you, when you walk through the partner pavilion, you will see the evolution of Qualys, where we started being the crazy ones to think that we could put a server on the internet and scan people to give them the vulnerability findings, because the term SaaS or cloud was not used then. Now cloud is a fashion statement. Everybody is cloud first, cloud native, cloud fresh, whatever it's called. We are the OG of the cloud, okay, guys? So, and over the years, we have continued to innovate. A lot of the analysts were telling me we're crazy to introduce patch management. Like, nobody's going to buy patch management from a vulnerability scanning vendor. Just this year, from January 1, 2024, till last week, Qualys agents have deployed 78 million patches in our customer environment. So security teams, this is security teams who have convinced their IT team to work with them collaboratively to use Qualys to take care of the cybersecurity patching. So we've always been innovative of that, but that does not happen without the people. I've been here for 21 years, partly because I couldn't find a job anywhere else for 21 years, but I always feel like this incomplete mission, and it's all about building an amazing team, and I think really we have worked on building that team. So I do want to play a little video that gives a little preview of sort of the journey of Qualys and where we are now.
In 1999, Qualys was founded with a single mission: to innovate in the cybersecurity space and protect businesses worldwide. From that first step, we never looked back. As the world changed, so did we.
It is impossible for you to go through your day-to-day without using a product that's secure by Qualys.
Adapting, growing, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
I really believe that now with this cloud technology, we have the opportunity to build security into the cloud.
Today, almost every business is becoming a digital business. It is creating a financial inclusion that is based on empowerment that is digital. And so we have to think in that context when we talk about cybersecurity.
Securing the cloud and beyond, one innovation at a time.
The real question here is, who do we trust? We trust things that we know. So the question is, how many of you know your assets?
Now, 25 years later, we celebrate a legacy of innovation, dedication, and leadership.
Today, everything is becoming important and critical. And so the issue is that if everything is critical, then the IT team's really not taking you seriously.
We vow to continue to measure, communicate, and eliminate risk wherever it is found. Here's to the next 25 years of shaping the future.
Awesome, guys. Of course, this is a very emotional journey for me, but a lot of other folks. So I would just take one more minute for Qualys employees, if you can stand up. I know that all of you are standing up already anyway. So first, just so you know, we haven't seated too many employees to make it look full. It's actually, pretty full. I know that once a year they help, separate your money from you. But I hope that the rest of the year they're coming and truly adding value to your business. And for a lot of you who have been customers the last many years, that these folks here have been their partners with you in making sure that your overall goals and you're successful in that. So please give a round of applause to our employees. So thank you very much.